In episode 5 of Star Trek Picard, Stardust City Rag, beloved Star Trek Voyager character 7 of 9 grabs 2 Halo assault rifles, beams down, and shoots a woman in cold blood, along with a whole bunch of other people. Spoilers, by the way. When I say cold blood, I mean that this was a premeditated murder. She came on this mission with the intention of killing this woman, and she did it for revenge. At the very start of this episode, we're shown that Icheb, another character from Voyager, and essentially Seven's son, was tortured by some scientists and mercy killed by Seven, which is bullshit, because those injuries were not life-threatening for Star Trek's level of technology. Hey, does anyone remember that time Neelix's lungs were stolen?
His lungs have been removed.
But that's a tangent for another day. It's revealed about halfway through that this was the lady responsible, and that Seven really came down for revenge. Initially, it seems like Picard has persuaded her that she shouldn't.
You know, you're right. This is not saving the galaxy. This is just settling an old score.
You have no idea what this is.
Well, tell me, what is it?
But then she beams down and does it anyway. This is a deeply weird scene for Star Trek. Many of the crew who worked on this episode have pointed out that Gene Roddenberry, Star Trek's original creator, would never have allowed this scene to happen, and I mean, yeah, this scene would not be allowed in original Star Trek. That's not to say revenge isn't something that shows up a lot in Star Trek, but I think it would be useful to compare how modern Trek, and specifically Star Trek Picard, frames the concept, in opposition to Star Trek of days gone by.
From hell's heart, I stab at thee. For hate's sake, I spit my last breath at thee.
There are too many episodes and movies to go through for a complete list, so instead I've selected a few examples which I think will best articulate my point. In Season 2, Episode 6 of the original series, The Doomsday Machine, the Enterprise picks up a distress call from a fellow starship which has been severely damaged while tracking an ancient planet-destroying machine, and the ship's commander is out for revenge. See, his ship was damaged by the machine and he evacuated the crew onto a nearby planet, which was then destroyed by the machine, so he's feeling somewhat guilty.
Where's your crew?
On the third planet.
There is no third planet.
Don't you think I know that?
While Kirk is on the damaged ship, Commodore Decker takes command of the Enterprise and starts making wild and desperate orders in an attempt to destroy the device. He uses the justification that the weapon is extremely dangerous and can't be left to roam around. However, Spock is eventually forced to mutiny against the Commodore when he plots a suicidal course into the machine that would result in the death of the crew, concluding that the Commodore has made it far too personal.
Maintain phaser fire, helmsman.
We have lost warp power. If we don't break the tractor beam within 60 seconds, we never will.
But don't you understand? We've got to destroy it!
That, sir, is illogical.
Decker goes rogue and steals a shuttle, flying it straight into the machine's core in a pointless attempt to destroy it, which accomplishes absolutely nothing. So this is pretty blatant. Revenge is self-destructive and irrational. The show goes to great lengths to show that Decker is projecting a level of malice onto the machine that just isn't present. It's all automated, it has no objective.
They say there's no devil, Jim. But there is. Right out of hell, I saw it.
And his final scene, flying into the maw of the machine, couldn't really be more obvious if it tried. This is very common in Star Trek. We very rarely ever see someone actually be successful with their revenge plan. Either they die in the attempt, they're talked down, or it's revealed that it was all a misunderstanding. That's one of the reasons this scene with Seven is very weird. The Doomsday weapon is primarily about a fallen hero, and is thus more apt to our comparison. In most cases, however, it's a villain seeking revenge, which adds another common element to revenge, a heavy association with evil. The most famous example is, of course, Khan. Khan wants revenge for being stranded on a planet by Kirk, and that's the entire plot of the movie.
I've done far worse than kill you. I've hurt you. And I wish to go on hurting you.
Which actually doesn't end well for him. He doesn't even get to kill Spock. They bring him back in the next movie. Coincidentally though, revenge is also an element in Star Trek 3 and 6. Early on in the movie, Christopher Lloyd's Klingons kill Kirk's son.
Klingon bastard, you've killed my son.
Which is rather a similar situation to 7 of 9, but even with that in mind, Kirk not only offers to help Christopher Lloyd,
Give me your hand!
He is a champion for the peace talks in Star Trek VI, despite the fact that Klingons killed his son. Let's jump forward a bit. In First Contact, Picard is consumed by revenge against the Borg, as illustrated in this scene.
They invade our space, and we fall back. They assimilate entire worlds, and we fall back. Not again. The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther. I will make them pay for what they've done.
This doesn't make sense, and it's completely inconsistent with the Picard show in TNG.
I think that I deliberately avoided meeting with the Borg because I didn't want anything to get in the way of our plan. But now that I have, he seems to be a fully realized individual. He's even accepted me as Picard, captain of the ship, and not as Locutus.
So you've reconsidered the plan?
Yes.
Maybe they've changed.
Change? The Borg? They coolly assimilate entire civilizations, entire systems, in a matter of hours. They don't change. They metastasize.
But that's a tangent for another day. His fury causes him to make several bad decisions, primarily the continual refusal to self-destruct the Enterprise despite half the ship being assimilated. After this conversation though, he begins the self-destruct, but he stays on the ship not for revenge but to save a friend's life. Then he snaps the Borg Queen's neck anyway because, I don't really know. First Contact is a bad movie. Ignoring that though, the argument between Picard and Lily is a perfect example of Star Trek's philosophy on revenge. It turns you into a raving lunatic. Even in the J.J. Abrams reboots, we can see Star Trek's revenge philosophy. The villains of all three films are motivated by revenge. Revenge bad, we get it. Then we get to Star Trek Discovery. In episode 2 of season 1, Michael Burnham shoots the Klingon they were supposed to capture after she watches him kill her captain. Now, she doesn't exactly get away with this, given that she's stripped of rank and sent to prison, but it's the framing of this incident and how we as an audience are expected to feel about it that interests me. In this scene, we are meant to empathise with Michael Burnham. She's the main character, her captain and friend was just killed, and the fact that she got her revenge isn't on her conscience. It's the fact that she couldn't save Giorgio. Let's compare that to a very similar scene from TNG. Worf's lover and baby mum has just been murdered, and in an act of rage, he takes off his warrior sash and comm badge, grabs a bat'leth, and seeks revenge. He confronts the killer and evokes the Klingon right of vengeance, and they have a fight. The Enterprise crew storms in, attempting to stop Worf, but they arrive seconds too late, and he gets his vengeance. Now, we are, of course, expected to sympathise with Worf, but in a strange way. Klingons have a very warrior and violence-based culture, and this scene of Worf making his son look at the body is proof of that. And by taking off his sash and comm badge, we see that Worf knows that what he's about to do is wrong. Not only that, the show also frames this action as incredibly short-sighted, as the truth about how Worf's parents died in the act that supposedly dishonoured his family is only known by this guy, and killing him makes sure that nobody will know the truth.
I'm the only one, Worf. The only one who can prove your innocence. Kill me and you're a traitor forever.
Then that is how it shall be.
Okay, it's actually more complicated than that, but let's not get into that right now. Picard takes Worf aside after this to give him a stern talking to, and unlike Discovery, Picard isn't framed in evil shadows, but as a voice of reason and correctness. There's obviously a lot of parallels here, but my concern is how the audience is expected to feel about these actions. In the case of Worf, while we can sympathise with his motives, we're not supposed to feel like he did the right thing, or that his motives justify his actions. In the case of Michael Burnham though, while we're not exactly supposed to approve of her actions, the show doesn't directly condemn them either. This dude kinda deserved it, didn't he? This might just be mixed messages, though Discovery is really bad at getting its point across in general. Either way, Bridges is back here to 7 of 9 shooting this woman in cold blood. Now, I think the show unequivocally frames this as a good thing, whether intentional or not. If this was supposed to show 7 falling to the dark side, then it fails epically. This is very clearly a "Yas, Queen" moment. It doesn't just show 7 as justified, it shows her being a badass while she does it. If you need confirmation of that, TrekCore ran a Twitter poll about this episode, and overwhelmingly the results show that people were in favour of this murder. I find this deeply saddening. Like, I think I see what they were trying to do here. Seven of Nine's original problem in Star Trek Voyager was being too robotic. She'll advocate for letting the crew die or ignoring distress calls because it might jeopardize the mission. By the end of the show, she's learned to become more human. Now, years later, she's fully human and she's overcorrected. Now she's operating on full emotion, going on revenge missions. But, why? Discovery annoys me so much because it doesn't make sense and it's kind of silly. But Picard seemingly exists to make me upset. Really, this revenge subplot with Seven is emblematic of the entire show's writing. It is profoundly nihilistic. The establishment is racist and corrupt. Trusting someone makes you a fool, and our heroes revel in vengeance. In every way, it's the opposite of TNG. In a recent interview, Patrick Stewart addressed this very thing, stating that the show is a reflection of our modern day, of Trump and Brexit, of feeling that things are getting worse, that we can't have the Starfleet of TNG anymore. Bollocks to that. The world wasn't any better when TNG came out. Racism still existed, homophobia still existed, the Cold War was in full swing. TNG wasn't a reflection of the times, it was a bold rejection of them. A hopeful vision of the future, one where we can work together without fear or bigotry, and without the foolish bickering of countries. Star Trek Picard and all its violence and revenge is not the catharsis we need right now. What we need is hope. We need the idyllic vision of the future, a shining light to work towards, to believe that we can and will do better, and not murder people and rip their eyeballs out. Oh god. Oh no. Oh no.
Fucking
How's Brexit treating you?
It's... Kyle, why you got to depress me in the first 30 seconds?
It wouldn't be a good podcast if I didn't.
It's fine, Kyle. You know, we've been out the EU for approximately 25 minutes. And nothing's changed yet. People are still getting burgundy passports and everyone's complaining about it.